President Cyril Ramaphosa officially opens the first G20 meeting of foreign ministers, which kicks off in Landsberg today. At least 35 ministers will be in attendance at the two-day gathering, which is expected to discuss how the body can intervene in geopolitical tensions and the debt of developing countries, amongst other things. Newzroom Afrika's senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngobo is at the venue now in the southern part of Johannesburg. Ziyanda, good morning. You're standing by with the minister's advisor, so let's find out whether we can get a sneak preview as to the direction and some of the topics we'll be covering today.
You know, it's the direction and the topics, but also the news that continuously comes in from the United States, Himan, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that he won't be attending next week's finance ministers meeting. And so it would seem, Prof. Landsberg, that every time South Africa does something, the US seems to be overshadowing us or paying a particular attention to South Africa. Let's start off here then. Are we overstating every time, you know, whether it's Secretary of State Mark Rubio or Scott Bessent, you release a statement that they're snubbing South Africa's G20 presidency? Or is this really important to sit up and pay attention to, because clearly the president is even wanting to send an envoy there?
I can confirm that South Africa, under the direction of the president, will continue to emphasize negotiating with the US, knocking on the door, try and even push the door open. We're not going to give up on trying to engage America and clarify clear misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and the like. Whether South Africa will get a warm reception is neither here nor there. That's part of our strategy. But coming to your point, are we overstating America doing everything every time something is done by South Africa? I don't only think it's America. I think Europe says it in so many words. Before that Munich summit, they did not see that J.D. Vance, vice president's speech coming, and they are in shock. But guess what is the advantage thereof? Europe is now realigning. Europe is now preparing at least for 4 years, while President Trump is going to be there to become more self-reliant, to take a different stance on Russia, Ukraine, and the like. South Africa, on the other hand, we are planning. We are hoping for the best. We're hoping the US will change their mind. We're hoping they will send senior. But we're preparing for the worst as well. What is not going to happen is one country, no matter whether you are the largest or the second largest economy in the world, we're going to bring the G20 to a halt. If that's an objective of any state, it's not going to happen. They're going to fail in their objective.
I mean, Prof, we've been seeing this happening with the United States, almost dangling, for instance, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. And it wasn't necessarily the Trump administration. You'll recall in 2023, when AGOA was up for review, that it was threatened because of South Africa's neutral stance with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, fast forward to 2025, it's no longer the Biden administration, but also the Trump administration, again dangling AGOA, aid. They've pulled out of, the World Health Organization. And my point here is America deliberately trying to misunderstand South Africa? Or is it a case of, because this is not the first time we'll be sending an envoy there, and really, what is the point if it seems like different administrations are not understanding where we stand?
So what's good about your question is that anybody can try and deny it, but there is continuity and change between Biden and Trump, but the change is really palpable. I mean, it's big, it's huge. Somebody this morning described it as the Trump tornado going throughout the world. What I like about your question is that I think President Trump picked up where President Biden left. President Biden was going to veto sanctions against South Africa, even though it's clear that he was irritated with South Africa over Lady R. I've got my own interpretations whether Lady R was the real issue or whether there were other issues. Let me tell you what I think is at the heart of President Trump's annoyance with South Africa. It's Israel in the ICJ, right? So you can bring in the Afrikaner question, you can use words like mass killing of race groups in South Africa that is so far from the reality of South Africa. It has to do with our boldness for the steps we took towards Israel. That's certainly one of the underlying causes, but they haven't explicitly said that. And I think the reason why it's not been said is because it's at a court of law. So there are even limits to President Trump undermining institutions and speaking out against institutions.
Speaking of undermining institutions, Prof, G20 was formed by the U.S. Bill Clinton in 1999. When they formed the G20, the U.S. was a big part of it. South Africa is the last global south country to hold the presidency in a very long time. Now, there's an article, an opinion piece by Professor John Stremlau, who's suggesting that perhaps, the G20 presidency going to the United States shouldn't go to them. Maybe it should go to another country. Firstly, has this ever happened before? And how likely is it, given how the very same US that founded the G20 seems to be rejecting and undermining this very institution?
What I can tell you with a degree of certainty from my side is that 19 members of the G20 and friends of the G20, other countries who are participating, are not going to allow one member to bring the House down. So what Professor John Stremlau, my former colleague, is suggesting is not only in the realm of possibility. I think it's plausible that it could happen. But let me tell you what's the scenario we should also not rule out. That the closer we come to the summit, the more America would show interest in the G20 to use it for its interests, but the big difference between Trump and Biden, the current president of the United States plays serious geoeconomics. And as you say, the G20 was created because of a global financial crisis at which America was at the heart of it. And for America to let this instrument go and not being at their disposal to use their leverage and play global economic politics with it, I can't imagine that. So I'm saying 1 week is a long time in politics, let alone how many months do we have to go? 10 months before the summit. So there's going to be lots of shifts and twists, roller coaster. But by the time we host that summit, I think we might see a different posture from America towards the G20.
Let's run with that theory then, Prof, because let's say that they start to come closer towards South Africa and start understanding our stance better when it comes to policy. Don't they run the risk of leaving the vacuum, which we can see now that the European Union is trying to fill? They're moving closer towards Africa. They've thrown their weight behind our G20 presidency. France, Germany, and Italy have also done the same. Nature doesn't allow for a vacuum. The risks that they run if we say that that's their possible strategy.
It's ironic, the point that you make, right? Remember with Lady R, even European countries were very angry with South Africa, but the solidarity that many African countries have now found with South Africa because of what they interpret as this tornado of President Trump even picking on allies has brought this to bear. No, there is no doubt that the G20 will continue with or without America, and John Stremlau's prediction might become true, and I can even suggest to you it might be the UK or South Korea. I mean, there's a timetable worked out about who takes over next. The past 4 years, we had southern countries from the south. We're the last one that now ends. Then it's countries from the northern industrialized world that will take it over. I can assure you, if by October there's this dilly-dallying and uncertainty from America, somebody's going to put it on the agenda that if you don't want it, we will take it.
Very quickly, Prof, 2 days, foreign ministers in the country, over 35 are in South Africa participating in this, the key agenda for South Africa.
Very clear. I mean, the theme, equality, solidarity, and sustainability. And in the complaint of President Trump, what is the one word in that theme that they singled out? Sustainability, diversity. And that's, of course, what Vice President Vance's speech was also about in the U.S. It's amazing the number of bilaterals that our minister is engaging in and meeting. The president will be here later. It's going to be a full house. Foreign ministers are flying in. And I think we're going to have a full house. And even America is likely to be represented, but at a low level in order to send a message. But they will not completely stay away.
A long journey ahead until we reach November, Iman. That's Prof. Chris Landsberg there, a minister's advisor in the International Relations Department. Really, the U.S. could change its stance. Talk already beginning about the possibility of not handing over to the United States if this rigmarole continues. But certainly for the next 2 days, the U.S. will be represented, but at a low level. However, other countries moving forward, stepping in, try to fill in that vacuum.